Working on some home exercise. I apologize for maybe not being able to see my head, but my house is kind of small and it was kind of hard to get far enough away. This exercise has merely a piece of, I don't know, maybe it's a 2x8. You can use a 2x4. I just happen to have I found a 2x8 out in the barn. And this is a little scrap piece of 2x2. You can use whatever you got. It doesn't really matter. You don't want it too long. I would say this is maybe 15 inches long. And if your fulcrum in the middle is a little taller, you could use a little longer board. So the first step is to be able to stand on the board, about shoulder width apart, and your first goal is to be able to balance there without holding on to anything. Okay, you're going to find as you're younger, this will be a little easier. But as you're finding your balance, you'll find that my shoulders are staying still. I don't know if you can see those or not. So I'm going to work at finding my balance. Keeping my core still, think about my centering. And there I just thought about my centering, and then my balance got a whole lot better. So that's step number. And always make sure you have a chair or a wall or something close to hang on to so you don't fall down. Okay, so I'm going to stand on the board again. I'm going to slide my feet about shoulder width apart. Now, remember watching the centering video, you put your hand here and you breathe. You kept your eyes up, didn't stare at anything like at a pinpoint vision. So you put your hand here, you kept your eyes up. And then you're going to just rock side to side, keeping your shoulders as still as you can. So the movement's all in your legs and all in your hips. So I'm going to make a rhythmic movement. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. So the key is to be able to do this in a very rhythmic fashion. 1, 2, 1, 2 is the movement of the horse. So that's the movement that you would be mimicking as you're to stand on the board again. And I'm going to just work on standing on the ball of my foot by the edge of the board. And only do this if your board allows you to do this. This one is. And I'm just going to drop my heel and raise my heel as I'm rocking the board back and forth. And then I'm going to go to neutral. So I'm going to heel down, heel down, heel down, heel down. And when I'm in my knee, I'm not going to raise my heel. I'm going to keep my heel stretched down but in a neutral position even though I'm bending my knee. So this is actually kind of tricky. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm hanging onto a chair to keep my balance because I'm really focusing on getting my ankles to do what I want them to do. Go ahead and pick up my rope. This you can use any kind of rope. This is just a little piece of rope from Farm and Fleet, our local farm store. You could use a clothesline. You can use any kind of cord or rope you can hang on to. This one's about 6 foot long. You can use whatever length you can find. So our first goal is, I'm going to actually step behind this. Our first goal is we're going to be hanging on to our reins with 2 hands. And I want you to hang on to your reins separately so that they're not bridged. My goal is just to barely lift them off the ground. So I'm going to center, I'm going to look, I'm going to do it correctly, and then with a lot of feel, I can lift up the chair and balance it and have it be fairly steady. Now if I lock my knees, stare at something, hold my breath, and just use my arms, you are going to find that when you do that, it's not near as steady. It tends to wiggle more. And that's how your horse will feel your hands in his mouth. I'm not trying to move my hands. I'm trying to actually keep them very still. But I'm not being very successful. So I'm going to go back to being centered. I'm going to bend my knees. Breathe down deep in my diaphragm. Use soft eyes. Tilt my pelvis a little bit. I'm just going to think about being anchored and centered down to the ground. And then I'm going to continue to breathe deeply. And I'm just going to take a feel of the reins And I'm going to balance that just a tiny bit above the floor. And then I'm going to touch the floor, and then I'm going to lift it. And then I'm going to touch the floor, and then I'm going to lift it. And I want you to start developing that feel in your hands, because that's how the horse's mouth is going to feel to you. It's just going to be that soft little bit of an interruption through your hands. I'm not sure how to describe it. And you want to be able to basically feel that and control that. So then, once you've kind of got the hang of that, go ahead and hang on to my chair for a second, pretend it's the saddle. I'm going to get my feet in the correct position. I'm going to go pretty far wide out. I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to get myself centered. Good, and now while I'm centered, I'm going to use my core, and I'm going to lift the bottom of that chair up. And your goal is to try to keep your balance here. And then I'm going to let it down, I'm going to lift it up. And then I'm going to let it down, and then I'm going to lift it up. And then I'm going to let it down, and then I'm going to lift it up. So I have control of that. And don't worry if this is easy at first. That's okay, it gives you something to practice. So now what I want to do is I'm going to lift that chair up again. And I'm going to treadle. And my goal is to separate my hands from my feet. So my hands have to keep the front of the chair up, but my feet have to step the board back and forth. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now I'm going to let the chair back down. I'm going to keep treadling. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. I'm going to lift the chair back up. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Merely sitting on it and finding your balance. I'm going to hang on to something at first, and you're going to lift your feet off the ground and see if you can find the center of it, and then keep your balance. Remember to use your core. And using it behind my horse here. And I'm going to be using this as my horse to treadle with, and using my reins to also work on hand separation from the body. So one of the things you can do, of course, is treadle, which is what we were doing before. You're just going to rock the ball back and forth, stepping a little in your right foot, a little in your left foot. And then the goal is to make sure that you don't get your shoulders moving with it. You want to make sure that your shoulders stay really, really still. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lift up the bottom of the chair, the front legs of the chair. So I'm going to lift up the front legs of the chair, and I'm going to work at holding that really, really steady. Now the cool thing with the ball